Hey everyone, Dan here. We are during Power Hour on Monday, May 17th, and we're going to do that Monday thing of take a look at Palantir and see what the week ahead might look like based on the macro chart and the micro chart. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. Let's jump right in. Before we get into the charting, let me just say, because I've been looking at this more consistently anyway, I wanted to do a quick check on the short interest with Palantir and just wanted to sort of say, you can go look at the stats on your own, but it's interesting to see, even with sort of like this beating down that has occurred consistently since, we're at $30 up here, and even before that, we're at 45 or something. The shorts haven't really been doing anything except for scaling back. There was like a big jump up, I think, when that first knockdown sell-off came, but then since then they've really been scaling back, and I was kind of surprised. The fee is very low to borrow; it's almost non-existent, but I think the percentage of the short floated is only like 4% or something, so it's definitely in the lower side. So I don't see any short selling pressure, and in fact I see it sort of dwindling, so I'm wondering if that will sort of like be an additional potential boon, that there's not a lot of short interest coming in to put this, what I would call it, artificial pressure on the stock, though I know some folks would take issue with that. But here's the 3-month 2-hour chart. As you see, been caught in this like pretty long-term down channel here, and been trying to establish off of that. But right now, it's caught about mid-range of that channel at that $20.37-38 mark, and recently did a test of the floor and was able to hold it, so that's a good sign. Not super surprising that it's getting stuck today right around this area here. You see this previous support here, came down near support here, and then resistance earlier and resistance earlier. Sorry, if I said today, that's not today, but recently, recent resistance there. So, even support in this area as well. So that's going to be a pretty tough zone. Basically, if it can establish support at $21, that would be a really, really good sign for Palantir to come up. And then in the high 22s, that's going to be a range as well. You see all this support here, all of this support here was a resistance zone there, and then had support to do that pretty decent push at that level there, and even support way back here when it fell out of the channel. And this is a nice clean one to sort of see where these zones are most likely to come in. So I would actually like bump this up a little bit. So right here in the mid 24s would be the next one that I'd be looking at. But these are all the zones that I would say, as Palantir may start to get some bullish pressure coming in, these are the floors that I would look for it to continue to establish to give itself its next big push up, at least in terms of the potential for supply and demand zones. So this is what I'd be looking for on the upside. On the downside, I would just be looking to make sure it doesn't fall out of that channel, but I know no one wants to come all the way down into the 16s. At that point is where that would put us. So more immediate support that I'd be looking for is for it to hold this 1957 if it happens to test it again. And if not, I would look for it to absolutely hold this 1847, which, again, hopefully that's not sort of in the cards, but those are the price zones on the upside and on the downside that I would look out for in the coming, we're on the macro chart, so in the coming weeks, really. And let's pop this off and just sort of see what the indicators are looking like. On the MA side of things, obviously in a bit of a bearish trend here, so we are below the longer term, but we have bullish crossover from the 12 to the 20, and then the 12 and the 20 over the 50. So everything is gearing up for a potential push here as far as the MAs are concerned. That said, it has done that in like the history of this chart before. Here you see it, and then it just kind of like came back together and all coiled back up again, so that could certainly happen as well. But looking like it might make a run for that 180, which would put it up over that $21 mark, which I think that price zone that we had charted at the 21 level, like getting that support level would be super, super impactful. I don't know how much resistance the 180 might bring into play once it starts bumping its head on there. RSI coming up a bit, but you have a nice channel forming here in the RSI as well. So hoping that that can sort of like just take its dips down to about the mid-range, not take dips down all the way toward oversold territory. On the MACD end, holding its bullish pressure nice. So after a big push here, and then just a small bearish dip to get it back into negative below the baseline territory, it was able to slingshot, work itself back up again. And while it didn't have quite as big of a bullish push this time around, the real estate is holding between the MACD and the signal line, so it might be sort of like giving itself chance for a secondary push coming up. On the micro chart, so if you're doing like shorter term day trades or short term swing trades, this would be the one that you may want to sort of be looking at more closely. But I would look for a support zone. I don't know how I keep missing. It's like I click it, but it doesn't register. I'd be looking for a strong support zone here at about 1963. If it does happen to fall below there, I would expect it to get caught right about here, 1917. So I'd maybe call that something like a cautionary zone. And then sort of like a really, really, you should hold this because you have so many times in the past on this 1869 level. So that's what I would look for on the hold it to the downside. On the upside, I would really hope that the immediate support has moved from this area up to that 2019 area with the previous resistance there. And then, relative support on it right there. So it may come down to test it again, but that would give it sort of a day of higher lows, even if some of the highs were a little bit lower. But I'd be aware that you don't want it to double top out here at 2047. So you want it to establish that 2047 as a support zone. That does come back to all of this support here where it was previously. So it's not surprising that it hit it as resistance earlier in the day today. And then, if it can establish above that, the next price target that I'd be looking for is 2081. And then beyond that, you're going to be looking at that $21 level, like we talked about before, as a really, really strong potential support zone that would help get it, I think, probably best positioned for a push toward 25. On the indicator end of things, the MAs are bunching up a bit here, so I want to see what's going to happen when they continue to unfurl. This afternoon, they're continuing their bullish push on the MAs. You see the 12 and the 20 are stretching up, generating more distance between the 50 and the 180, so that's a good sign for the bulls. RSI creeping up pretty high, but again, if it can continue to establish these like higher lows on the RSI, then maybe it'll establish a bit of a floor around mid-range of the RSI so that while it goes through this bullish push, it doesn't do much of any dipping down into oversold territory, which can be quite hard on the shorter term time frame. I would expect that to be much more likely on the longer term time frame, but something to consider as you're trying to plot your entry and exit points. MACD curling down a little bit toward the signal line, so it could do a bit of a bearish crossover there. And the bulls, obviously from this area of the histogram onward, have been losing momentum. That said, the bears are not picking up the momentum, so it might be flattening out a little bit here, sort of like you see in this area, giving itself some potential energy stored up for a next big move to the up or the downside. That's the thing we don't know. But when it's sort of consolidating, something is coming. You just don't know when, which way or when. So no crystal balls here. All right, well, that'll do it for Palantir this time around. It's looking like it's starting off strong, in my opinion. So I'm getting a little bit of hope since like this, the situation that we had on Friday, and then even the ability to kind of like stop the bleeding here that we saw when this big sell-off happened. And I know it dipped further, but it kept kind of working itself back up into this range. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what it seems as though this range is wanting to play a strong role here. So it'll be interesting to see what that is as this plays out. But hopefully it's just established well beyond it now, and it's sort of like has accomplished all the volume for the buys and sells that were getting eaten up in that area, and it's time to sort of move on and look for new levels like we see all of this price activity up here, sort of work ourselves toward something that looks more like support at $21. Well, thanks a bunch for watching. Good luck if you're in Palantir this week or if you end up jumping in. And regardless of what you're trading, I wish you the best of luck, and I will see you in the next video.